Hi folks, Simon here, welcome back to the channel, and this article, I'm going to be honest with you, has caught me a little bit by surprise. So I was just thinking about how best to respond to it, and I'm going to start by saying this: what if the recent Final Fantasy VIII Remastered version that we've all been playing recently has been given to us more than for the purposes of simply bringing the game to modern consoles for the first time? What if Square have actually decided to dabble in the idea of remaking Final Fantasy VIII? Now, if you'd have asked me about this just a few days ago, I'd have said no, definitely not. There's simply no chance that Square are going to have any interest whatsoever in remaking Final Fantasy VIII. They just haven't shown any level of passion in the game over the past number of years, excluding of course the fact that they have just remastered it. But outside of that, it seemed to be a game in many ways that they wanted to forget about. But we have got that remaster now, and okay, it's been divisive. The Steam reviews haven't all been positive, but it's also introduced a lot of people to the game. I know a lot of people have been commenting in my videos from the various guides I've been putting out, telling me they are brand new to Final Fantasy VIII, that they wish they'd played it before, they're having such a fun time, etc, etc. So it has brought a new audience to the game. And what if Square, behind the scenes, are just, testing the waters, having a few conversations about if Final Fantasy VII Remake is successful, where they want to go with that concept going forward. And like I say, Final Fantasy VIII wouldn't have been the game I'd have thought Square would be selecting for their next big project. Maybe Final Fantasy IX, or maybe something from the later generations, 10 or 12. But Final Fantasy VIII, or maybe even something earlier. A lot of people, love Final Fantasy VI and the ones before. But Final Fantasy VIII was perhaps one of the most divisive Final Fantasy entries, so the concept of Square remaking that probably wouldn't have been the top of the list in my view. Not that I wouldn't want it, I just didn't expect Square to be talking about it. But it seems that maybe they are. Now, Yoshinori Kitase in this article, brought to us by Silicon Era, going to be leaving a link to that down in the video description, has spoken about the Final Fantasy VIII Remake. Not that it's a project that actually exists, but for his desires of that project were it to exist. And this is what he has to say. And just in case you don't remember, or if you've not heard of him, Yoshinori Kitase is part of the big brass over at Square Enix. He's been the producer, the lead producer and director for many of their games, going back many years, going back to Final Fantasy VI, I believe. He was the lead producer of Final Fantasy VII and is the producer on the Final Fantasy VII Remake also. So he's got a lot of experience, and this is what he has to say about a potential 8 remake. If the youth that inherits the genes of Final Fantasy can step up and do it, then I'd like to see it made. That's a really interesting comment. Kitase actually wants to see a Final Fantasy VIII Remake, and you can guarantee that if he's speaking about this publicly, they've spoken about it in the offices behind the scenes with one another at Square. For Final Fantasy VII Remake, the project started from my desire to make Final Fantasy VII with today's technology while I'm still here at Square Enix. So I'd like to see it, Final Fantasy VIII Remake, done by the youth of Square Enix. Now, there's a few things that we can take away from his comments here. First of all, Kitase is fully focused on the 7 remake. That's what he's producing, that's what he's working on, that's what he wants to see come to fruition. And we know that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is still going to be in production for probably many years to come, since it's going to be taking place over multiple episodes, multiple games. And clearly, Kitase here is suggesting that he's not going to be around at Square Enix when, if they ever get to the Final Fantasy VIII Remake, that is going to be taking place. So even if there is going to be a Final Fantasy VIII Remake, it's not going to be probably for many, many years yet. But the fact that he wants to see it is very encouraging. He would also like it to be taken on by a younger generation, I guess, of Square Enix developers. Perhaps he wants the younger generation at Square to really grasp on to the Final Fantasy franchise. That's what it sounds like with this sentence here, and to actually fall in love with it so that it would become a passion project for them, just as the Final Fantasy VII Remake has been for him. But regardless of that, of who would develop the game or any of that stuff, the thing I really take away from these comments here by Kitase is that if you'd have asked me a few days ago whether I thought there might have been another Final Fantasy remake after Final Fantasy VII, my answer would have been possibly, if Final Fantasy VII Remake does well and they exhaust that project and milk it for as much as they can get, they might look at moving on to another Final Fantasy game from years past. But if you'd have then asked me, do I think that follow-up would be Final Fantasy VIII as a remake, I'm pretty sure I would have said no, there is no chance of that whatsoever. Now, based on this article, the fact that Kitase is saying these things publicly, I've actually done a 180. And while I'm not saying we're going to get any kind of Final Fantasy remake after Final Fantasy VII, that game somehow might not be successful in Square's eyes, I doubt it, but you never know. But if there was going to be another remake, I actually think it will be Final Fantasy VIII, because I don't see why they would be focused on that game here and trying to test the waters for Final Fantasy VIII and just dropping little public hints about it if they weren't taking it seriously to some degree. So I thought this would be of interest to you guys. Obviously, as I say, there's nothing confirmed at the moment and probably never will be, at least not for the next foreseeable number of years. Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be a huge focus for Square and for the fans for the foreseeable future, but just, keep an open mind about the fact that Final Fantasy VIII might not be done with yet. And if you've got any views or thoughts as to what you'd like to see, maybe another Final Fantasy game instead, or if it is looking like it's going to be Final Fantasy VIII, what you would like to do with the game, or rather what you would like Square to do with the game to bring it to a modern generation. Yeah, please do share your thoughts down in the comments section, because there was a lot of divisive things about Final Fantasy VIII that people weren't always happy about. Some people were, some people weren't, like the way the story was presented, the way the junction system was given, a very powerful system, but also one that had its drawbacks. So they could change a lot in a remake and make Final Fantasy VIII perhaps a game that it was always intended to be. But please do, like I say, let me know what you think about those things, and I'll keep an eye on this story, see if it evolves at all. But if it does, I think it will happen slowly, so let's be patient for now. Take care everyone, I'll see you next time.